and all I know about the death of Mr. Cumshaw is that he is said to have been killed by 3 brothers named Bonnie." "So you'll want just about everything, Mr. Silk," Thrombley said. "Really, I don't know where to begin. Start with why and how Mr. Cumshaw was killed. The rest, I believe, will key into that." So they began, Thrombley, Stonehenge, and Perros doing the talking. It came to this. Ever since we had first established an embassy on New Texas, the goal of our diplomacy on this planet had been to secure it into the Solar League. And it was a goal which seemed very little closer to realization now than it had been 23 years before. "You must know by now what politics on this planet are like, Mr. Silk," Thrombley said. "I have an idea. One ambassador gone native, another gone crazy, the third killed himself, the fourth murdered." "Yes, indeed. I've been here 15 years myself." "That's entirely too long for anybody to be stationed in this place," I told him. "If I'm not murdered myself in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to see that you and any other member of this staff who's been here over 10 years are rotated home for a tour of duty at department headquarters." "Oh, would you, Mr. Silk? I would be so happy." Thrombley wasn't much in the way of an ally, but at least he had a sound, selfish motive for helping me stay alive. I assured him I would get him sent back to Luna, and then went on with the discussion. Up until 6 months ago, Silas Cumshaw had modeled himself after the typical New Texas politician. He had always worn at least 2 faces, had always managed to place himself on every side of every issue at once. Nothing he ever said could possibly be construed as controversial. Naturally, the cause of New Texan annexation to the Solar League had made no progress whatever. Then, one evening at a banquet, he had executed a complete 100-degree turn, delivering a speech in which he proclaimed that union with the Solar League was the only possible way in which New Texans could retain even a vestige of local sovereignty. He had talked about an invasion as though the enemy ships were already coming out of hyperspace, and had named the invader, calling the Zsroff our common enemy. The Zsroff ambassador, also present, had immediately gotten up and stalked out, amid a derisive chorus of barking and baying from the New Texans. The New Texans were first shocked, and then wildly delighted. They had been so used to hearing nothing but inanities and high-order abstractions from their public figures that the Solar League ambassador had become a hero overnight. "Sounds as though there is a really strong sentiment at what used to be called the grassroots level in favor of annexation," I commented. "There is," Perros told me. "Of course, there is a very strong isolationist, anti-annexation sentiment too. The sentiment in favor of annexation is based on the point Mr. Cumshaw made, the danger of conquest by the Zsroff. Against that, of course, there is fear of higher taxes, fear of loss of local sovereignty, fear of abrogation of local customs and institutions, and chauvinistic pride. We can deal with some of that by furnishing guarantees of local self-government. The emotional objections can be met by convincing them that we need the great planet of New Texas to add glory and luster to the Solar League," I said. "You think, then, that Mr. Cumshaw was assassinated by opponents of annexation?" "Of course, sir," Thrombley replied. "These Bonnies were only hirelings. Here's what happened on the day of the murder. It was the day after a holiday, a big one here on New Texas, celebrating some military victory by the Texans on Terra, a battle called San Jacinto. We didn't have any business to handle, because all the local officials were home nursing hangovers. So when Colonel Hickok called—" "Who?" I asked sharply. "Colonel Hickok. The father of the young lady you were so attentive to at the barbecue. He and Mr. Cumshaw had become great friends, beginning shortly before the speech the ambassador made at the banquet. He called about 0900, inviting Mr. Cumshaw out to his ranch for the day, and as there was nothing in the way of official business, Mr. Cumshaw said he'd be out by 10:30. When he got there was an air car circling about, near the ranch house. As Mr. Cumshaw got out of his car and started up the front steps, somebody in this car landed it on the driveway and began shooting with a 20 mm auto rifle. Mr. Cumshaw was hit several times and killed instantly. "The fellows who did the shooting were damn lucky," Stonehenge took over. "Hickok's a big rancher. I don't know how much you know about super cow ranching, sir, but those things have to be herded with tanks and light aircraft, so that every rancher has at his disposal a fairly good small-armor combat team. Naturally, all the big ranchers are colonels in the Armed Reserve. Hickok has about 15 fast fighters and 30 medium tanks armed with 50 mm guns. He also has some AA guns around his ranch house. Every once in a while, these ranchers get to squabbling among themselves. Well, these three Bonney brothers were just turning away when a burst from the ranch house caught their jet assembly, and they could only get as far as Bonneyville, 30 miles away, before they had to land. They landed right in front of the town jail. This Bonneyville's an awful shanty town. Everybody in it is related to everybody else. The mayor, for instance, Kettlebelly Sam Bonney, is an uncle of theirs. These three boys, Switchblade Joe Bonney, Jack High Abe Bonney, and Turkey Buzzard Tom Bonney, immediately claimed sanctuary in the jail, on the grounds that they had been near to— get that, I think that indicates the line they're going to take at the trial— near to a political assassination. They were immediately given the protection of the jail, which is about the only well-constructed building in the place, practically a fort. "You think that was planned in advance?" I asked. Peros nodded emphatically. "I do. There was a hell of a big gang of these Bonnies at the jail, almost the entire able-bodied population of the place. As soon as Switchblade and Jack High and Turkey Buzzard landed, they were rushed inside and all the doors barred. About 3 minutes later, the Hickok outfit started coming in, first aircraft and then armor. They gave that town a regular George Patton-style blitzing." "Yes, I'm only sorry I wasn't there to see it," Stonehenge put in. "They knocked down or burned most of the shanties, and then they went to work on the jail. The aircraft began dumping these firebombs and stun bombs that they used to stop super cow stampedes, and the tank guns began to punch holes in the walls. As soon as Kettlebelly saw what he had on his hands, he radioed a call for Ranger protection. Our friend Captain Nelson went out to see what the trouble was." "Yes, I got the story of that from Nelson," Peros put in. "Much as he hated to do it, he had to protect the Bonnies. And as soon as he'd taken a hand, Hickok had to call off his gang. But he was smart. He grabbed everything relating to the killing, the air car and the 20 mm auto rifle in particular, and he's keeping them under cover. Very few people know about that, or about the fact that on physical evidence alone he has the killing pinned on the Bonnies so well that they'll never get away with this story of being merely innocent witnesses. The rest, Mr. Silk, is up to us," Thrombly said. "I have Colonel Hickok's assurance that he will give us every assistance, but we simply must see to it that those creatures with the outlandish names are convicted." I didn't have a chance to say anything to that. At that moment, one of the servants ushered Captain Nelson toward us. "Good evening, Captain," I greeted the Ranger. "Join us, seeing that you're on foreign soil and consequently not on duty." He sat down with us and poured a drink. "I thought you might be interested," he said. "We gave that waiter a going-over. We wanted to know who put him up to it. He tried to sell us the line that he was a new Texan patriot, trying to kill a tyrant, but we finally got the truth out of him. He was paid 1,000 pesos to do the job, by a character they call Snake Eyes Sam Bonney, a cousin of the three who killed Mr. Cumshaw." "Nephew of Kettlebelly Sam," Peros interjected. "You pick him up?" Nelson shook his head disgustedly.